Good evening. This is Ms. D coming at you live for Teen Scene 10, featured on the Terry Graham Radio Show. In this series, we're dealing with the psychology of sex trafficking. Well, first of all, let me rewind a little bit. The main topic that we're touching on for the month of September and October on the Teen Scene 10 is going to be bullying. And I'm touching on all different types of bullying. And I saw a movie last weekend called When Love Kills, the Felicia Blakely story. And it really moved me to touch on a different aspect of bullying. A very serious, maybe even to the point that no one even really thinks of human trafficking as a form of bullying, or the grooming process that young girls and boys as well, and women are targeted, and just the way that they psychologically become exploited. So I've been doing some research, and I just want to share a little bit of what I found. Now, of course, this is a show that is faith-based, so I'm always going to bring some word into it, always. So let's first and foremost, let's see what the word says about manipulation, because manipulation is a form of bullying. Isolation is also in bullying. So Leviticus 25:17 says, "Do not take advantage of each other, but fear your God. I am the Lord your God." So right there in black and white, in Leviticus, the book of the law, it says, do not take advantage of each other. And then we go over to Matthew 7:15 and 7:15, and I may read all the way through 20. It says, "Watch out for false prophets." And you'll understand how this relates when I start explaining more about the grooming process. "Watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves." If that don't say it right there. Okay? "By their fruit you will recognize them." And that is why I'm talking about this, so that you can be a fruit inspector. You can understand what you're looking for. I have a teenage daughter. You see her over here. And I really want girls and boys to really understand this process, and to get in, to realize that there's a psychology to it. There's a psychology to the game. So you need to be clear so that you can be a fruit inspector. You can't look for signs that you're not aware of. So having said that, we're going to get into it really quickly. First of all, most people don't realize how many, that actually the majority or most of human trafficking victims, and I've read several articles today, and a lot of them don't refer to the children, the women, the boys, the people who are subjected to this as victims, but that's exactly what they are. They are victims. They're victims of coercion. One article called it, and let me find it real quick because it was so fitting. They were vulnerable. They exploited their vulnerabilities, basically, is what they were saying. What it was saying. So there are 3 phases of recruitment and scouting that these traffickers or pimps take a victim through. See, first of all, it's called the lover boy syndrome, because a pimp knows that once a girl or a victim, because it's not just girls that this occurs to, it happens to grown women, it happens to boys, it happens to, obviously, to young girls. But once a girl is emotionally involved, she will do anything to keep his affection. So, bottom line right there, that's where it starts. You know, that's their train of thought. That's their game plan, their strategy when they're coming at a victim. You know, because they're trying to get that person emotionally involved so that they can have control. There are 3 phases of recruitment. There's the scouting phase. The scouting phase is the initial contact and bonding between the pimp and the victim. And all of this information, let me just go ahead and shout out my source, is exploitnomore.org, specifically from the article Pimp Controlled Trafficking and the Grooming Process, written in February of 2016 by Katie Lynn. You know, but the scouting process, which is the initial bonding between the pimp and the victim, you know, again, pimps are experts at recognizing the vulnerabilities in young girls or victims. And let's kind of look at what they look for. You know, they know that once they figure out that person's pain point or that person's weakness, that they're going to play on it and use it to gain control over that person, to manipulate them. So those are words that I really want you guys to really equate. Manipulation, victim, vulnerabilities. They look for girls with low self-esteem. They look for girls who are isolated from friends and family, who have a history of abuse, sexual and physical, who are homeless or in the foster care system, who come from fatherless and broken homes, or girls who have conflicts with their parents. After they identify the vulnerability or the weakness, the strategy is to fill the missing role as either a boyfriend, a father figure, or a caregiver. Whatever that person feels like they're in need of, that's what they're going to do. And again, there are 3 phases. So that's the scouting phase. Then there's the manipulation phase, where the victim begins to trust the pimp or trafficker and becomes dependent on that person emotionally, and, you know, also as a provider. So they develop a physical and an emotional dependence on that person in the manipulation phase. And then there's the trapping phase, where, also in the manipulation phase, that's where a lot of the violence and the abuse begins. You know, and that can be anything from gang raping the girl to beating her or him or whom the victim. I'll stop putting a gender on it and just say the victim. You know, isolation, threatening the family. There's a list. But in the trapping phase, that's when the trafficker or the pimp comes up with the sob story to make the victim feel needed. Typically, he'll tell his victim that he needs help. He needs that victim's help to better their financial situation so they can have a better life. And he makes all these empty promises, and he slowly breaks her in. You know, he slowly breaks her down, he breaks her in, and, you know, then it gets to the point to where he's requesting that now she's starting, you know, that she have sex with one of his friends. Clearly, we know that's not his friend, it's a customer, but, you know, this young girl doesn't know. Her only goal is to do whatever her trafficker, pimp, in her mind, her boyfriend or her caregiver or her father figure is asking her to do so that she can maintain and keep that affection that she's perceived in her mind. We know, from the outside looking in, we understand that it's a false sense of affection or a false sense of love and caring that he's just using to manipulate. I pray that this segment has been enlightening for you, and I thank you for your time. And Miss D is signing off for the Teen 10 on the Terry Lamb Radio Show.